To RTV's continued live coverage of the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. I'm your host tonight, Jerome Soya. NEMA continuing their daily briefings this morning with presentations from a number of international aid agencies. They did, however, speak to weather systems they now have on radar. There are two active systems in the tropics. There's one that's literally over the Bahamas, producing the rain and wind in the Northern Islands. Another is taking shape further south and is being closely watched. Well, now to the latest from the aid agencies working on hurricane relief and recovery. One of the many agencies on the ground now is an American emergency group called USAID. Their efforts are focused on the emergency phase, assessing damage and even a level of search and recovery. However, they have also quickly realized that we have a major issue with nearly 3,000 people in shelters.
Who's been working shelter issues and emergencies for over 30 years. And at the request of the government and in conversation with them yesterday, we are in the process of assigning someone here for the next few months who can work with the government as they need for this important area. And on top of that, we will be looking at organizations who can fund shelter type solutions. Again, everything in coordination with NEMA. Our focus 100% again is in support of the government of the Bahamas. Our focus is to address immediate emergency needs. And obviously those change as time goes on, so we will continue to bring in the appropriate people, experts in whatever area it may be. Again, water, sanitation, hygiene. I have a health officer here. We will continue to do that based on the request from NEMA and the government of Bahamas.
Now, also in the spotlight today was Samaritan's Purse. They've set up a field hospital in Grand Bahama, helping to care for Grand Bahamians left without a hospital, with Iran Memorial Hospital now inoperable.
That I've been doing this for 30-some years, and that the people of the Bahamas are extraordinarily tenacious and resilient, and I'm very impressed by that. I see we have aircraft here. I've been able to fly over the islands, and I've seen the worst destroyed areas, but I've also seen that the people are resilient, that NEMA, that the government officials, the process of cleaning up and rebuilding has already started. So it's an honor for us to be a part of that. We have set up in partnership with the World Health Organization in PAHO, a Tier 2 hospital in Freeport. We've had over 230 patients in the last 2 days. There are still serious injuries out there, trauma injuries from the storm itself that are coming into us, and that we're seeing a lot of chronic diseases. We're working closely with the Ministry of Health on this, and I want to recognize Dr. Dwayne Sands as being very helpful to us in that. We also recognize the overall coordination efforts of NEMA and the value of that. Our partners at OFDA and the U.S. military and the other militaries here, who I may not be familiar with all of them, but I know that we're bringing a lot of supplies in daily rotations. And yesterday, I think there were probably 8 or 9 helicopter loads that you guys moved for us, so we are grateful for that. We are focused on the emergency phase, but we're also looking at shelter, and we're looking at demolition and cleaning up on some of the islands, particularly up in the Abaco area. I had the opportunity yesterday to meet briefly with the Prime Minister during a distribution, and am just really very impressed with the entire effort that is going on here in the nation. So thank you.
The Net Hope Group is working to get communications restored. They're working along with cell phone providers BTC and Alive to provide Wi-Fi and some phone service to the areas that need it the most.
We're focusing on, of course, shelters, clinics, NGO bases where they are forward operating bases and things like that. We've been working very closely, as I said, with both BTC and Alive. And I must say they are doing a great job getting the networks up and running. They've done a super job getting the connectivity up that is here today after what happened. So I must say they're doing a good job, although it takes time, and everybody understands that.
World Central Kitchen is preparing and delivering hot meals daily to people in those affected islands. 25 team members and hundreds of volunteers providing support to a major feeding effort.
To date, we've prepared and delivered 160,000 fresh meals across 3 of the islands, New Providence and Abaco and Grand Bahama. We expect to surpass 200,000 fresh meals served by tomorrow, as we expect to produce about 30,000 meals today in total. We have full-time kitchens operational on Grand Bahama in Freeport and here in Nassau at Atlantis. We also have a full-time team based on Abaco in Marsh Harbor. That team has been there since immediately after the storm had passed. The team arrived on the ground to begin setting up there. We currently have 3 full-time helicopters to make those deliveries as we're producing out of Nassau to get food to Abaco. We expect to have a 4th helicopter up and running tomorrow, weather permitting. We all know the storm that is brewing. We're currently delivering with assistance of partners on the ground to 22 locations on Abaco. That includes Treasure Cay up to Cooperstown. We're also delivering to isolated communities with our helicopter, including some Haitian communities more cut off. We have started deliveries to Foxtown up in Little Abaco. Every day we are also delivering to Green Turtle Cay and Man-O-War Cay and some other islands as we receive requests. With these helicopters, we've also been able to support with 14 evacuations to date, and that number changes every day. To date, we've brought in approximately 1 million pounds of food and supplies, and we're also procuring locally from Bahamas Food Service. We're trying to procure as much as we can on island. We do have a 220-foot boat that's currently based in Freeport, but may be transitioned soon to Abaco. We also have an amphibious vehicle on the ground that enables us to deliver to locations that are isolated or cut off because roads have been washed out or bridges are out.
Well, the Prime Minister announcing last evening that a national prayer service is being organized for the victims of the hurricane. He spoke in a national address last night where he announced that Wednesday, September 18th, as the date, 7 p.m. at the Diplomat Center on Carmichael Road. Also, he announced a day of national mourning where flags will be flown at half-mast. That day has yet to be announced. Within his 20-minute speech, he also expressed sympathies for the families of the dead. The United States continues to provide aid and supplies for the many affected victims and areas, but there is a huge injection, that is, of manpower and expertise into the relief effort coming from any number of agencies. I had an opportunity to visit with one of them in Abaco just yesterday. We board a U.S. Navy Black Hawk helicopter Wednesday morning bound for Marsh Harbor, accompanied by a team from ABC World News and other U.S. Armed Forces personnel. From the heat, close quarters, and virtually little view of the outside, it's soon very clear this would be no luxury adventure. Once on the ground in Marsh Harbor, we make our way over to the U.S. aid camp. More than 50 volunteers from the Fairfax County Urban Search Team have set up base camp here.
So one of the remarkable things about this response is that the United States military airlifted 95,000 pounds of all this cargo over here to Abaco from Nassau. And that was over the course of about a day and a half to 2 days. And so that allowed us to set up our base of operations here with all our search and rescue equipment and all our base camp equipment so we could get out into the areas around Abaco. We've been working with NEMA. They've been coordinating response. We have nightly response coordination meetings, and so we get their priorities because they're the ones that are coordinating the entire response, and then we execute their priorities based on what they tell us.
U.S. aid is working along with the U.S. military to get to the Keys and across Abaco Island and provide crucial data to NEMA and the government.
Because us just going around asking if everybody's okay doesn't really provide any value if we don't get that back. So we do an assessment on nearly every building we come upon. Just a quick sort of stoplight: red, yellow, green. Red being significantly destroyed, yellow being moderately destroyed but repairable, and green being minor destroyed, with just some minor repairs to fix. And so we do that for every building we come across. But in addition, we're talking to people. So what are their humanitarian needs? Do they need food, water, shelter, medicine? And then working with the Bahamians to make sure they understand, okay, this person's going to be good for another 5 days, another 10 days. So they have those priorities. And so obviously somebody that needs medicine today is much higher priority than someone needs medicine 5 days from now. So it's prioritizing that and getting that information back to the Bahamian government.
Thus far, the people here are extremely resilient. I've been blown away. They're already starting the rebuild process. They've been nothing but helpful. Their spirits have been extremely high throughout the whole thing. What I've seen has been fuel. Fuel and communications has been the big thing. There's been a lot of goods. There's been a lot of NGOs that have been coming through here. They've been pushing a lot of goods, and there seems like there's a nice flow of goods coming in to assist the people. And again, people are helping out people here as well, and it's just a beautiful thing to see.
And we would soon witness that in action. Our convoy met up with a search team at the Marsh Harbor Clinic and took a short ride to the Francis de Sales Catholic School. The team accompanied by armed officers of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, an added layer of security. But the drive through Marsh Harbor is a quick reminder of the utter devastation in this community. We arrive at the school and the team is briefed and search parties dispersed. Up close gives you a grim and yet frightening feel of what must have been unleashed here. The sheer magnitude of the extent of the damage is stunning.
This is just crazy.
The team is looking at structural integrity and whether these buildings are uninhabitable. Every once in a while, there's a moment when someone pauses to take in the true sadness of what lies here. As we move through, the officer assigned to the detail speaks of the personal sense of tragedy that so many of his Bahamian colleagues are facing, yet he says the police remain committed to the job on the ground. As we survey a classroom block with minimal structural damage, I immediately surmise someone is living here. Moments later, we find a Haitian woman in a classroom. She's one of 5 people seeking shelter here.
You lived in the mud or pigeon peas?
Yes.
You did?
No, it's sorry.
And where?
Sorry.
Okay, okay. The home is gone?
Mom was gone.
It's gone?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, your family?
No, I'm not family.
You have no family?
My family in Haiti.
In Haiti? So
Yeah.
you have by yourself?
Yeah.
Are you going to stay here or go to Nassau?
Yeah.
You're going to stay here? Okay. What did you do here? Would you work?
No.
You didn't work? Okay. So your house is gone in Pigeon Peak?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Okay. So the house is gone.
Yeah.
And you're living here?
Yeah.
Okay. How were you getting food from?
With my friend.
Your friend?
Yeah.
He's bringing you food. I see you have a stove and all this. Okay. And you're just living here,
Yeah.
trying to survive. Take care. Okay.
As they move about in these communities, this team also takes into account structural assessments and humanitarian needs.
So we're really the first wave of humanitarian workers that come into any space because we're there to effect search and rescue. And as part of that, we're overall humanitarian workers. So we make sure that all those things such as food, water, shelter, and medicine get reported back to the Bahamian government. So we really feel that we're sort of honored to be there as the first wave of people to help in a disaster.
So critical infrastructure, it's a huge thing. We come out, we put boots on the ground, according to what the local government needs from us. In this case, they wanted us to go out and identify hospitals, schools, fuel stations, things like that that may have taken a large hit. We'll go with our structural engineers. They'll do structural assessments and find out how much damage has been done to these buildings and about how long we think it's going to take for them to be up and running again. One of our main goals is to try to get this economy up and running as quickly as possible. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to assist the local government with that information and getting that passed back to them.
This is the kind of thing that you all do all the time. Is there anything unique in this situation that you may not have seen in other places, or is it simply just sort of what's indicative of a disaster?
You know, no disaster is the same. It's all sad. This one was quite devastating. And when we got down here, just talking to the locals, again, like I said, they're so resilient and they're so nice, and it tugs at your heartstrings a little bit because you always want to try to do more, you know. So we're trying to do everything that we can here to assist them, and to get this economy back up and running, and to assist the local government, more importantly, with anything that they need.
They make this trek daily and have been able to make significant progress with the recovery effort, all while sustaining themselves at the base camp.
We don't want to be a burden on the local government that's already overwhelmed with taking care of their citizens. So we bring food, water, shelter, communications equipment, everything that we'd need for several days of operations so that we can offer assistance without requiring any of our own.
Sure. And what's a typical day like for you and other rescue workers here?
It really varies. It really, depending on what the Bahamian government sets as our priorities for our work, it may be aerial flights out to certain keys to check on places there, driving around Marsh Harbor and doing assessments. It really depends, and that's what's sort of interesting about this job is no day is ever the same as any other.
They are one of a network of agencies tied to the American agency FEMA, but only one of two that go to international disaster zones. Yet, for all of their expertise, they are still working with the local police force.
They help us with what we call force protection. Okay. So we've been under no threat or anything like that. We've never come upon a group out here that it's been threatening or you know, been what's the word I should say? I would say threatening to us. But they're there just in case to help protect us, and we help protect them. So we sort of give them food and water, and they patrol our base camp at night, and then come out with us on missions just to be there to have a Bahamian presence from the government. So, you know, so we're there with us. Okay. Yeah.
I just want to say a special thank you to the U.S. Embassy here in Nassau, as well as the USAID group on the ground there, for providing us access and taking such good care of us yesterday on the ground. Well, from the moment Hurricane Dorian threatened the Bahamas more than 2 weeks ago, members of the media have been tracking this storm. Even now, for many of us, the work continues. Jessica Robertson is live tonight with an individual who has been in this storm, figuratively, from the start. Jess?
Thanks a lot, Jerome. So tonight we're joined by Jasper Ward. She's a reporter with the Nassau Guardian, a young, almost kind of rookie reporter. What has your experience been? You've actually been on the ground a number of times since the storm hit.
You know, I'm a Cub reporter. September 10th just made, you know, my 1-year anniversary working in news. And this has been a surreal experience, you know. From the start of the storm, I was interacting with people in Abaco who had been, you know, in life or death positions, you know. People in Grand Bahama were calling me from their attics as they hid from the rising surge in their house. And for me, it's been a bit overwhelming, you know. A lot of times we think of natural disasters And we think the first responders are only the doctors and the police, but individuals in media, the reporters, we too are usually first on the scene and closely following these crises.
Yeah. So you've been into Abaco, throughout Abaco, the hit areas. Where have you been? Tell me about your journey and what you've seen.
So on Thursday, the Thursday after the storm, I would have gone to Marsh Harbor with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and we went to Pigeon Pea, we went to the government complex, we went to the clinic. And you see the posts on social media and you think, oh wow, this is terrible. And you get on the ground, you smell the smell of decay, of the bodies that would have, the lives that would have been lost there. You know, you see the hundreds of people who are, you know, taking refuge now at the government complex because they're homeless, and it's like, you know, is this really Nassau? You know, you start to question, you know, really how these individuals are going to be able to make it through this. On Friday, we went with Nima to Treasure Key. It's known for tourism, it's known for its scenic beaches and resorts, and literally there's nothing left. There's just shells of buildings. You could just see wood panels just standing up and nothing else. And on Sunday, I would have gone to Crown Haven, Foxtown, and Grand Key, which are not as impacted as Central Abaco, but they've still had a bit of damage that would have happened, and individuals there are still a bit traumatized, you know, just with reports of individuals who would have died, who they would have known in other parts of Abaco. So being on the ground and, you know, seeing what you see on social media are two different experiences. I think a lot of Nassauvians, if they were to actually step on the ground, their outlook in this whole storm would be totally different.
It is, it's very hard, and I can't imagine, I mean, this is probably the most traumatic thing you've dealt with as a journalist. You're not, you know, an old hat like Jerome and I, and even for us, this is shocking and devastating. So how do you, when you're seeing this, and what I found is I can just stand here on the ground. I don't even have to walk. The stories are all around, each one more devastating than the other. How do you, as a journalist, decide what to tell, what to share, and how to share it?
I don't think we have a choice. If you come to me with a story, I have to share it. You know, once I can validate that you aren't, you know, making up the story, then I feel like it's my duty. Who am I to tell you that your experience and your encounter is not worthy of being publicized? You know, I did not go through the storm. You had to live through it. You know, I spoke to a woman this morning. I was at the National Stadium. I was just doing interviews about the school registration. And she looks at me and she says, you see, it's about to rain. I have a 4-year-old daughter. Since the storm would have hit Abaco, every time it rains, every time it's cloudy, she looks and says, Mommy, do we have to leave our house? Mommy, is the storm going to blow us away? Mommy, is the roof going to come off? You know, these stories are what's going to document this historic moment we're living in. So I, as a journalist, have no right to tell you that your story should not be publicized, you know, and I think that's the thing I'm appreciating the most about The Guardian, where I work, is my boss, and I don't know if she wants me saying this, sorry, Candia, but she looks at us and says, you know, those people's stories are what matter, because, you know, they went through it, nobody else. The other individuals are helping, but it's their stories that we need to really get out there, and so.
Absolutely. What's been the most difficult story to tell?
I think the two hardest, one from each island, would be, as the storm was, you know, tearing through Abaco, a video started to surface on social media of a woman crying out for help with her 4-month-old baby in her hand. And I'm a Nassau Guardian reporter. We're the oldest news organization, so what am I going to do? I'm going to find her. And I got her contact. And as I'm talking to her on the phone and she's explaining what happened, the phone cuts off. And I looked at my editor and I'm like, I don't know what just happened, because right before it ended, she's screaming. She's like, I see the light, oh my God, and line goes dead. And at that point, I just started bawling. I started crying. She takes me and she's like, it's gonna be all right. You know, this is the hard part of the job. And, you know, I got back in contact with the woman, but at that moment, not knowing if she had died, I'd never experienced a fear like that. And, you know, a day later, I call this woman who's in the attic of her house in Grand Bahama. She's there with her brother, her mom, and her dad. She's like, we've been here for 5 hours. I think I'm gonna die. And if I do, this is the last conversation I'll probably have. And I've been in news for less than a year, you know. I didn't feel in that moment that I was prepared for that. I'm like, who am I to really be trusted with this story, you know, your last moments? And I think those 2 moments, never will forget them, never.
Those are rough.
Yeah.
How do you strike the balance between the important role of telling these stories and still respecting a person, a human being, in what is perhaps their lowest moment ever?
I think for me, it's a matter of respect. You know, if you tell me you don't want to talk, what I'm going to do is going to be like, okay, let's talk off the record. And I really won't even push it for a story, but I'll find out, are you okay? Are you safe? Should I make phone calls on my end to ensure that you and your family are safe? I think as reporters, yes, that's the job, but we're still Bahamians, we're still people, and we have to just be reminded of that humanity, you know.
And I think that's one of the challenges we've all had, or the experiences we've all had, is when we're out there in the field gathering these stories, getting involved in some way, shape, or form in the care of these individuals.
Yeah.
Whether it's a hug, whether it's making a phone call, whether it's setting something up on the other end.
Yeah.
And like you said, we're Bahamians first. We're people first.
Definitely.
You know, we're human beings. And that's one of the things, you know, a lot of people have said, I don't know how you and Jerome have been getting on the air every night and doing this and going out in the field and doing this. And I think there's something that we as journalists, we develop. We're not taught it. I think it's a self-preservation thing. You learn to look through the lens while you're in the moment.
I know.
Because otherwise you'd crumble.
Well, for me, I found the 2 ways I've been feeling helpless. So the 2 ways that I've felt that I've been able to take control of, you know, that feeling was I was in a group with Grand Bahama victims, and for the duration of the storm, I made it a thing. Send me your coordinates, and I'll call the Defense Force and ensure they come and rescue you. And after the storm had passed, every individual I'd interviewed before and during that storm, I called them and I checked up on them and I said, do you need anything, you know, anything you need, just tell me and I'll make sure it gets to you. Because at the end of the day, as reporters, we can't just call you for the story and just abandon you. You know, what does that say about us if that's what we're doing?
Right, right. We're not in it just for the story. So how do you explain, when you come back, how do you explain to people here who haven't been on the ground? Like you said, I mean, even with Treasure Key, until I went in Thursday morning, the only visuals we had seen, because communications down, was actually aerials. And from the sky, it didn't look so bad. And then you get on the ground, you go, oh my Lord, it's really bad. But how do you convey that? Because even the pictures, the video still doesn't tell everything.
Well, for me, my editors, all 4 of them were getting calls throughout the day while I was in Marsh Harbor. Everything I saw was just like, you guys, they're not showing this on social media, you can't believe it. And so my editor, when I went back in the newsroom, she was just like, you sit down, just write what you saw. Nothing else, just write what you saw. And so as a reporter, that's all I can do. For me, what I tell an individual who hasn't been in Marsh Harbor is the smell of decay is real. You know, the official body count is 50. I'm not in government, I'm not in health. Who am I to go against that? I know what I saw. You know, I walked through Pigeon Peas and I saw a church that crumbled and we could see 3 visible dead bodies, you know, on the cusp of decay right in front of us. I went in the morgue, I saw 8 bodies already there. And I was pointed out a trailer that was said to have had more bodies. And so, you know, it's not the Marsh Harbor, it's not the Abaco that you once knew, it's not the home of the 2nd largest economy, it's not a tourism hub. You know, it's a place where individuals have lost their lives. It's a place where people are traumatized to go back. You know, it's like a war zone. It's the only way I could describe it. It doesn't even look like it's a part of the Bahamas.
You touched on this when we first started, but how are you taking care of yourself?
I'm listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin, and I'm drinking a lot of chai tea, and I can't even ask for a better work environment. You know, when I write a lot of these stories, even when I left the office today, my editor's like, are you okay? You know, we're here for you. My coworkers, like throughout the Guardian, they're just like, you know, we're going through this together. If you need to talk, whether it's at work or after work, we're here. And so it's that support system, you know, in my work environment and with family and friends who understand the heavy load that, you know, I'm taking on as a reporter in telling these stories. And so with Led Zeppelin 4 album, my cup of chai tea, and the support team I have. I think that's been helping me just slowly move through every day.
Well, thank you so much for what you're doing, and continue to keep the heart in the art of journalism.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Back to you, Jerome.
Thank you very much, Jessica, and thank you, Jasper. I was riveted with that interview. I think her points were so poignant, and I think what we do sometimes is really not understood completely. And thank you for that. And just you listen to as much Led Zeppelin as you must, and drink as much chai tea that you need to do. Well, folks, when we come back, the registration for the evacuated children doesn't go quite as planned today, and our feel-good story of the night. Stay with us. We're back right after this.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive.
This is Eddie, and Eddie's a change counter. This is Sean. Sean doesn't have to count change because when Sean purchases a plan with Alive, it's VAT inclusive. Keep things simple, just like Alive's all-new VAT-inclusive prepaid plans with more talk, more text, and even more data. So don't be an Eddie. Freedom simplified. Alive. Believe in best.
With independence comes freedom. The freedom to explore, to create memories, to be proud, and the freedom to choose color. Happy Independence, Bahamas.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
Having a policy with Bahama Health is more than just health insurance. It's about feeling good knowing that your health and wellness is covered. It's about the confidence you feel knowing that your card is accepted by over 50 pharmacies and 400 local doctors. It's about peace of mind, knowing that when you travel, you have comprehensive coverage and our overseas partner is just a phone call away. It's about the security you feel, knowing that you're an important part of the family.
Thousands of Abaco school children are now here in New Providence, evacuated from the two affected islands. Today was the first in a month-long process to register for schools here, but when hundreds of them turned up, there was a bit of confusion, and that's where all the problems began. Vaughn Aubrey picks up the story tonight from here.
Hundreds of parents and guardians, most from Abaco, crowded the National Stadium to register their children for school. The setup included many agencies of government led by the Ministry of Education. Education's Zane Lightburn is the coordinator.
We want to know where these children are coming from ultimately. We want to be certain of their families that they're living with. Because of all of whether there are trafficking laws or otherwise, we want to make sure that persons who are representing children in this case are in fact parents of these children. And we are dealing with the hurricane victims first.
We also got a chance to speak with a United Nations representative from UNICEF.
Together with the Ministry of Education, we have started a program of training of trainers for school counselors and teachers, and making sure that they can provide the psychosocial support to those children when they are integrated in school. That means that you know that a child is being affected, As a teacher, you can create a positive environment where the child feels comfortable to express his fear, his emotion, his frustration, his nightmare, to overcome the trauma and to move forward.
How many children are you trying to register? I see you got quite a few.
Yes, I have 5. Yes.
Ages?
3 to 10.
So how are they adjusting in your view?
I guess kids will always adjust in their area once kids around. They don't have a full understanding of what's going on as yet, but my oldest boy, 10, he's like, Mommy, when we can have some place to stay? And I was like, everything takes time.
Among the booths set up included a special needs desk, but the first stop was the health screening desk. Ministry of Health Coordinator, Senior Nurse Sherry Armbrister.
What we're finding is they have basically what they need, because for us, if they don't have their immunization record, for example, then we do what we call a catch-up immunization schedule, so they're not impeded by any way if they don't have documents relative to health.
We anticipated that there would be large numbers. We had extra chairs, brought water and things that would make persons feel a bit comfortable whilst they wait. All of them would not be served today, unfortunately, but we are taking information from them so that we can give them, in those cases, we can give them some type of appointment to come back, because this is a month-long process.
And here at the National Stadium, there are a lot of operations, a lot of supplies, a lot of things have been donated here. And indeed, we had a special visitor, the wife of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Patricia Minnis. Mrs. Minnis, your view of what's going on here, it's a mammoth task and a massive hands-on.
Yes, what is going, they're well organized as far as I can see, and they've touched on all the areas that are necessary to get your children back in school. I really came down to bring school bags for all of the kids, and I had an opportunity to see the operations here, which is going very well.
And Mrs. Minnis, you also got a chance to meet some of the persons here. Mr. Joseph here, 17 years old from Abaco. What did you learn in speaking with him?
Well, he's a very bright young man. He's just gotten results from the BJCs and he's going to 11th grade. And so it's very important that he get back in school very quickly, because our country needs young men like him. And so we are hoping that he can get into school. He said he just got in, he's in a shelter. And so he'll hoping to get into school very soon.
There you go. There you have it. The wife of the Prime Minister, Mrs. Patricia Minnis, getting a first-hand look at the operations here at the National Stadium. And she got the chance to meet a young, bright man from Abaco whose dreams are not interrupted, because he will continue his education here in New Providence. Reporting from the National Stadium, I am Vaughn Albury. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks a lot, Vaughn. Well, storm victims in a range of emotion, especially those in shelters. We spoke with a father who seemed frustrated with the process in restarting his life.
I was thinking like the government saying like they was gonna trying to find everybody a job. So to think about it, if we have a job, so we can't live in the shelter. You understand? We can need a place to live. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's really hard right now for you to have a job. You have your family here at the shelter, and you have kids. And when you go to work, so where you gonna, it really hard. It really hard because we ain't planning to stay in the shelter for the rest of our life. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it.
So what are you thinking about in your near future, after you leave the shelter?
Trying to get me a different life. I try to get me a house for me to be with my family, because I don't like to be living around plenty of people. You know what I'm saying? Because for you to have a good relationship with your family, you need to live,
We do apologize here. I had a technical difficulty with bringing you the end of that clip. Well, cleanup has begun in some of the affected communities. Bill Simmons Road construction is on the ground, helping with the cleanup. Once impassable roads are open and the road rebuilding can get started. Well, we spoke with Harvey Nixon a few days ago as he was sending equipment and supplies off to the affected islands.
We
We have 2 sets of them, one in Treasure Gate, and the next one is in Marshall Barbago. We are going to hit the ground as soon as some more equipment reach there, and we already have some in place working at this moment. So I think with all upper management over there, they will access what all we need, and more equipment we'll have to implement in that situation to deal with some of the speedy recovery, cleaning up.
How would you describe the work to be done?
Well, it's a real devastating conditions and calls for a lot of man work, team effort, and togetherness. If we could have a cohesive effort with some of the people down there, along with the rest of the workers and all the help what we gathering from outside, I think we're looking at a good time frame.
Well, when you've lost all of your possessions and you've had to relocate to another island, how do you start over? Well, Vaughn Aubrey spoke with a group of young men who say they're ready to move to the next phase.
Outside the National Stadium, we met a number of young men from Abaco who say, despite Dorian, their dreams will not be interrupted. What's your plans?
My plan is to make it in college and be a professional basketball player.
Will Dorian affect that?
No, that can't get to me.
There you go. See, Harriet? He says Dorian will not affect his plans to go to college. And you, what are your plans?
My plans is to be an entrepreneur, to own my own business and help people. Like, 'cause the way I grew up, I ain't had nothing. And my mommy always like, if she ain't had it, she used to still give it to us and stuff. So now we recognize life and see how things just come and go in life. Even though we don't have it, still the Lord give us somewhere to get it from.
And the Lord is making the way for you.
Yes, sir.
You plan to go back to Abaco?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And make it bigger and better.
That's saying word.
There
Yes,
you
sir.
go. And you're 17 years old. What are your plans?
Own my own business, shipping and export company.
Yeah, shipping and export company in Abaco?
In Abaco.
There you have it. So you see, these young people from Abaco, despite Hurricane Dorian, they will not let Dorian affect their plans for the future. I'm Vaughn Aubrey reporting from the National Stadium. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Vaughn. We're going to take one final break and come back with our final wrap-up and look at, we've got two photos of the night to share with you. Stay with us.
This portion of On the Record is brought to you by Generali Insurance Company Limited, your employee benefits specialist.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
This is Eddie, and Eddie's a change counter. This is Sean. Sean doesn't have to count change because when Sean purchases a plan with Alive, it's VAT inclusive. Keep things simple. Just like Alive's all-new VAT-inclusive prepaid plans with more talk, more text, and even more data. So don't be an Eddie. Freedom simplified. Alive. Believe in best.
Discover the possibilities.
Discover the possibilities.
Discover the possibilities.
I discovered the possibilities.
I discovered the possibilities.
If you need a car, visit www.bforward.jp. We have an abundant lineup of vehicles at low prices, a wide selection of used cars that are maintained by experienced staff. We offer 24/7 order through, buy now service. We keep you informed with the newest tracking system throughout the delivery up to city. We have an office in North Nassau and they offer good discounts and reliable services. Visit www.bforward.jp. Be Forward, the best Japanese car exporter.
So welcome back. This is our final segment for tonight. I do want to begin though with a bit of, it's concerning news. I wouldn't say, well, it can also be disturbing, but we have alert number 1 on a potential tropical cyclone. It was issued by the Met Office at 6 p.m. this evening. We're in possession of it here. It says now an area of disturbed weather over the central Bahamas is expected to move northwestward over the northwest Bahamas and possibly develop into a tropical storm by late Friday. Now, a tropical storm warning is in effect for these islands in the northwest Bahamas: Eleuthera, Andros, New Providence, Abaco, Grand Bahama, Bimini, and the Berry Islands. Once again, the islands under a tropical storm warning: Eleuthera, Andros, New Providence, unfortunately Abaco, Grand Bahama, Bimini, and the Berry Islands. Now, this means that tropical storm conditions could affect these islands within 36 hours. Just to give you an idea of where the storm is in terms of coordinates, it's at latitude 23.7 degrees north, longitude 74.8 degrees west. Now, in terms of exactly where that is, 187 miles southwest of New Providence, 235 miles southeast of Marsh Harbor, Abaco, and 310 miles southeast of Freeport, Grand Bahama. Here's how the storm is moving. Now, it's going northwest at about 8 miles per hour. They don't expect this motion to change over the next few days, 2 days to be exact. On this current track, the system is anticipated to move across the northwest Bahamas on Friday, along or over the east coast of central Florida by Saturday. So to put it all in context, we could be experiencing a tropical storm by tomorrow evening. Maximum sustained winds are 30 miles per hour with some higher gusts. It's eventually expected to become a tropical storm during the next day or so. So in its current state, and if things continue to go this way, we could have a tropical storm. And that means it could be in this area by late tomorrow. It's expected to produce rainfall, accumulations of 2 to 4 inches through Sunday, producing localized flooding in low-lying areas. The good news, it's not expected to produce any significant storm surge. However, Jessica, the rainfall is of concern. When you look at areas that have already been hard hit by the monster that just passed here 2 weeks ago, we really, this is probably the news that we don't need right about now for those communities.
It's like taking a huge block of Inagua salt and rubbing it in a very raw wound right now. I saw earlier today as this storm and the projected track started to emerge and become something that we really needed to start looking at, where there were urgent cries going out for tarps to get into Abaco and into Grand Bahama to at least provide some protection in those structures that are still standing and not devastated already, so that we're not adding to the problem that we already have. I mean, yeah, it's not a great situation at all. But you know, we've proven that we're resilient.
What worries me is you've got groups like USAID that they're on the ground in tents. You've got people who have set up all kinds of things on these islands, temporary. You've got, for instance, over in Grand Bahama, you've got Samaritan's Purse. They have a field hospital made of tents. And, you know, in an area that could potentially flood, there are a lot of logistical things now that have to be considered over the next 24 hours.
Well, the good thing is that we do have all of these people here, and they are people who, this is what they are trained for. So I think we've got, unlike when Dorian was hitting us, we were kind of running it on our own. We've got the help on the ground.
The experts are here now.
The experts are here, they can help. And I just say also, here in New Providence, if you're in any of the affected islands, again, be gentle, be kind with people. PTSD, post-traumatic stress
that was going to
disorder
be sort of my next point.
is-
the trauma that this is going to
yeah.
be emotional trauma now.
I was
that this
talking
will
to
inflict.
I was talking to a friend who rode out the storm, the horrific storm in Hopetown. We were talking this morning. She said last night, she said she was at a meeting somewhere, and the wind picked up, and she had a very physical reaction to this. This is a very real situation for thousands and thousands of people, and that concerns me. So if you've got somebody who's staying with you, if you're volunteering anywhere,
Know someone.
if you just come, just reach out to someone. Just, are you okay? Can I help you? Do you need someone to be with you? This is trauma like we've never seen on a national level. So we just need to be kind and take care of each other. If you're in New Providence, we got to watch these storms. And I hate to say it, there's another one behind it that's showing that possibly next Friday we could be dealing with something. So the price of living in paradise.
Yeah, a heavy price. So
Heavy price.
we'll be sort of keeping an eye on that and seeing how that all pans out. Let's hope that whatever happens, let's hope and pray that whatever happens, it's minimal. And we'll be able to continue with our recovery efforts immediately after this all passes. Just a couple things I do want to, I can't help but reference the interview with Jasper Ward tonight.
What an amazing young woman.
She is, and just to think that she just celebrated her first anniversary.
In
Folks at the
journalism.
Guardian, if you're watching, you have a gem.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. But to be this young in the profession and to have gone through what she has gone through already, you could hear in her voice tonight and the descriptions how she has been affected. And throughout this week and even previously, we had people on this show talk about, how the first responders and how the volunteers and how the people who are working and the journalists are going to be affected by this because we're living it in another sense.
Yes, we absolutely are. Everyone keeps saying to me, you need to take a break from it. You need to take a break. And I'm like, I will, but just not yet, because the stories need to be told. We have this obligation, and we've talked about it. When people say, well, I don't know how you're doing it. And when I feel so helpless, you turn to what you know how to do best. And I think for us, this is it. We can gather the stories, we can get the information, we can help to share it in a way that makes sense, that's, we can add some comfort, I think, from this desk.
I get the fulfillment, and people ask me the same thing. They're like, are you resting? Somebody said to me yesterday, I saw a picture of you, you look thin. And I said, well, I'm fine, I'm eating. But for me, like you, I can't stop. And I tell people, thank you. I appreciate you inquiring, and I'm getting rest, where I can, and I'm taking my vitamins and trying to eat properly. Maybe that's why I'm losing weight. I'm just eating properly to keep your energy up. But you sit here and you have an obligation to tell these stories. When I was in Abaco yesterday on the campsite with the USAID teams, I stuck my head in the tent where the Bahamian police officers were. And I was about to leave, the helicopter was on the ground, and I said, guys, I just came in to say, keep up the good work, thank you. The Bahamian people appreciate the sacrifice that you're making on our behalf, and thank you. And a few of them turned and said, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in and acknowledging us, and let the Bahamian people know that we're here and we're working hard and we're doing this for them. And you realize in that moment that we all are doing our parts.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't think about those people who are out there who we don't see. The Defense Force officers, the police officers who are on patrol, who are working, who are helping. You go to Grand Bahama.
The EMTs.
Exactly, the medical professionals who are sometimes working around the clock. You go to Grand Bahama and you have the customs and immigration officers who are sitting in the searing heat under a little tent, just making sure that there are customs and immigration facilities at the airport. There's no building to go in, but they are there on the ground doing this. The policemen who are out there in the scorching heat trying to keep order, who are, helping and doing what they can. And there's so many people who are out there, who are lending their hands, their feet, their support, their moral support. And the beauty is too, Jessica, you see, I'm in the camp yesterday with all of these American, servicemen and women, volunteers. Even they came from Fairfax, Virginia, and it was a great crew. They took great care of me, I have to say. But in those moments when I sort of make eye contact with the Bahamian police, and they kind of nod and I nod, and there's an appreciation that, hey, we're here together. These folks are helping us. But in that moment, it's almost a connection you feel like. And then, of course, I'm the recognizable face, and they go, he's here to talk about us.
Yeah.
And so, whenever goes back to the point, whatever we can do to continue to tell the stories and to tell our people what is happening and what is going on.
And before I get into the photos of the night, the NAGB, the National Art Gallery, tomorrow from 10 till 1, it's a create space. So they've paired up, as they told us they would, with an artist and art therapist to bring a space so anyone who is in any way impacted by the storm and the aftermath is invited to come on down. It is free, it is open 10 to 1 at the National Art Gallery. You can talk, you can not talk, you can do art, you can just be. And it's a safe place for you. But the photos of the week.
Before you do that, I got to tell this story.
We don't have time for you and your stories.
Yes, I know. This is my last story of the night. Last night I stopped. I was on the way home. Don't judge me for the story. I stopped to get some food at one of my favorite watering holes. And waiting on the food, they were having karaoke. And I thought to myself, this is not what I want to do tonight. I just want to get some food and go home. But then something happened. It was, all of a sudden, everybody there really got into the mood, and there was the whole place was singing, and there was this there was almost this release, this attachment to the joy of the moment. And I thought to myself, now I wonder what I just happened to stumble on. And I sat there and I looked around and I listened, and I looked on the faces of a lot of people, and it was that moment that they all unplugged. And they were happy to be in that joy. And I wondered to myself, if this is happening in other places, to people sort of having gone through the stress of this, if they're finding ways to, in the moment, as so many people have said to us, find ways to, or find happy places, to release and don't feel guilty about it either. And
no, we have to. And I've heard a lot of people saying, I need to take some time. I need to take some time. And that's quite all right, because as we've been saying all week, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We need to take care of ourselves as we take care of each other. So on to the photos. Okay. Yes. So one of the things that a lot of people may not have thought about is the fact that as a lot of people in Abaco in particular have had to evacuate their homes were destroyed. They have pets. And so a lot of people found themselves having to make very split-second decisions about what to do and whether or not they could take their pets with them, and it's heart-wrenching. I can't even imagine having to do this. But stepping up to the rescue, you've had BARC, the Spay and Neuter Program organization, Bahamas Humane Society here in Nassau, all the local veterinarians have all been working together. The first order of business was to clear the Humane Society here in New Providence to make room for what they knew was coming. So they've teamed up with 2 facilities in Florida. 50 dogs were sent to the Big Dog Ranch Rescue, and these were shelter dogs. These weren't people's pets. 50 of them were sent to the Big Dog Ranch Rescue last weekend. 75 more dogs and 80 cats are headed to Peggy Adams in Delray this coming weekend, and it's all being done with volunteers and donations and everything. The motor yacht Laurel delivered 30 tons of aid into Marsh Harbor and then took 60 dogs from Nassau to Florida to the Big Dog Ranch Rescue. So there's that, all to make room for the animals of Abaco to have a safe place because their families have been displaced and scattered. So we're going to pull up the photo, and so BARC, they've brought in 72 animals so far. Golden Wings Charter has also been going in and out, and this is Max. So Max, today we found out his family had to leave him in Marsh Harbor. Their home was destroyed, and when they got to the airport, they knew they couldn't take. They were going to end up on a flight into Florida. They didn't know what they were stepping into, where they were going. He's a big guy, and so the BARC team happened to be at the airport. So they made a split-second decision to surrender him to people who they at least knew cared tremendously about animals, and broke their hearts. But again, they were flying into an unknown situation. And so today we had some good news. Max's family, they're staying with someone in Florida, and they have secured a foster home in Florida for Max, so he will soon be joining his family. And what's going to happen is the Humane Society will be sheltering these pets that have come in for 30 days. After 30 days, if no one has come in and claimed them, or families continue to have to surrender them because their situation just cannot be one that they can take the animals, then these pets the ones who are adoptable, will be put up for adoption.
So two things: if you've been separated from your pet, check in
at the Humane Society. Yeah.
And also after 30 days, check with the Humane Society.
Yes.
Some of these pets are going to need new homes.
Yes.
So,
yes.
good thing.
So do we have time for our next picture?
Yes,
I'll make it quick. This one we have to share.
Really.
And so an iconic symbol in Abaco was not destroyed by Dorian. If you've ever been to Abaco and to Hopetown, you know about the Candy Stripe Lighthouse at the entrance to Hopetown. The Elbow Reef Lighthouse Society today revealed that last night the lighthouse was lit for the first time after Dorian struck. And that photo they shared, they gave us their permission to share this photo with you. It's an electric bulb for now. They're not burning kerosene or cranking the mechanism until they can get their lighthouse keeper, who is really the only person equipped to truly inspect everything for damage to make sure it's safe. But we had to share this one because this, probably more than anything that we've shared, speaks to hope. It's a guiding light for all of us as we work our collective way through this new reality that we find ourselves in here in the Bahamas.
Great photo. Thank you to the folks for sending that and sharing that with us tonight. Jess, thank you very much for providing us with those photos. You keep bringing them every night. I have no hand in that whatsoever. None. So, folks, that's going to do it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our special guest. And thank you to all of you out there who helped to make this possible. Again, a very special thank you to the folks at the U.S. Embassy who facilitated our trip just yesterday. Got me on a Black Hawks helicopter.
You loved it.
Interesting ride. So, folks, thank you so much for watching us. Tomorrow night is our last night of these special broadcasts. So be sure and tune in. And after that, we're going to go back to regularly scheduled programming. But certainly we're going to end on a good note tomorrow night, continue to bring you the stories that are important, that speak to the recovery of this country in the post-Dorian era. On behalf of my co-host Jessica Robertson, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow night.